Good afternoon. We're at the Norwalk Community College, and we're in the Norwalk Community College Film and TV Studio, the Digital Production Lab, and we're interviewing Edward Ned Goodnow today, who is telling us for the World War II Museum. He's telling us about his experience in World War II.
And also, I was recalled during the Korean War, although I didn't go to Korea. To go back to the beginning, I was 18. I had my 18th birthday in November 1944, got my draft card in December and reported to Camp Dix, New Jersey in January 45. I was sent within a week or so to a training camp in Macon, Georgia. Training lasted until June, and at that point I was sent to the 99th Infantry Division, 393rd Infantry Regiment at Camp Maxey, Texas. I had the outfit was getting ready to go overseas. I had about a month in Paris, Texas, and it was nothing like Paris, France. We went by Pullman car to the Boston area in September, got on a ship. I've forgotten the name of the ship, and we arrived in England the first week in October of 44. We spent about a month in England, mostly hiking. It was we were in Dorset. It's a rolling hilland, and very pretty. Did an awful lot of walking. But a month later, we got on a ship to France, arrived in France first week or the last week in October of 44, and were trucked up to the front, which at that time our unit was on the Belgian-German border in the Ardennes forest. The advance of the summer of 44 had ended at the Siegfried line on the Belgian-German border. They literally ran out of supplies. Everything had to be landed in various ports in Normandy and Brittany and trucked to the front. It was a tremendous logistical job, and so we were in a kind of a fixed position. It was up against Siegfried Line, very little action, and we went on the line in November, first week of November '44, only a little patrolling, and then on the 16th of December '44, the Germans attacked in force in what became known as the Battle of the Bulge, which lasted for about 6 weeks. It was officially ended the end of January '45, and the advance through the Siegfried Line began. And
The American advance.
the American advance. And we began to make small attacks against pillboxes in the Siegfried Line. We were moved to a position in a little town on the German side of the border called Goodnow, and there we literally faced a pillbox of the Siegfried Line. They didn't fire at us, and we didn't fire at them, and not much happened for a couple of weeks. To explain why nothing much happened, the Germans were stopped in the R sector, in the north sector, and their attack shifted to the south part of the bulge, which ended up in Bastogne. Our area never became too active as far as the Germans attacking. But when we started attacking to reclaim territory we had yielded, we immediately began attacking these pillboxes in the Siegfried Line, and that was our first real combat.
Was this at the end of January? In other words, the Germans attacked on December 16th, and you guys, the Americans, were pushed back. Was this at the end of January when the Germans were stalemated on the Siegfried Line? or was this?
Yes,
Okay.
it was. And again, it's just the ups and downs of battle again. We didn't see much action until the beginning of February when we began attacking the Siegfried line. The weather was very cold. In fact, 3 days before Christmas, 44, temperature dropped to 7 above zero, and we didn't really have much in the way of winter uniforms, but we had extra sweatshirts and things of that nature, and we had mackinaws, and there was snow on the ground most of the time. There were only one or two major blizzards. We did a lot of patrolling up to the German lines, and we were living in foxholes. I didn't set foot in a building from the first week of November 44 to the second week of February in 45. In the second week of February, our unit attacked a pillbox that was right facing us. This attack was designed to start around 5:36 in the morning. At those longitudes, pretty much pitch black at 5:36. Our squad attacking this particular pillbox, there were about 11 or 12 of us in this squad, and we were lined up in a trench leading to the pillbox. The Germans built trenches connecting all of their pillboxes and for communications and logistics, food behind the line of pillboxes. And so the obvious way to approach a pillbox would be through one of these trenches. I happen to be the lead man in our squad facing this pillbox and spearheading the attack while we're waiting for the order to move ahead. Why, I thought I saw I had very good night vision. I thought I saw the silhouette of a man crossing our trench line about, I estimate about 25 feet ahead of me, and I instinctively fired a burst of 2 or 3 shots from my Browning automatic rifle. The word came up the line, knock it off. This is supposed to be a surprise attack. Well, that was a joke because there were Germans running all around us. We could hear them. They knew the territory because it's behind their lines. We had never been there before. And so finally the word, and as a matter of fact, during that, a little after my firing, there was some more firing, and 2 of our sergeants were wounded. The Germans fired through a hedge line, and our guys were gathered in the trench there, and anyway, those 2 guys were wounded. I was a PFC, private first class, and so finally the word came to move ahead. Well, I moved ahead about up the trench about 25 feet, and there was a German lying in the trench, dead as a doornail, and obviously I hadn't been seeing things. My night vision was accurate. I had seen it, and I noticed that this German had lots of hand grenades festooned on his uniform, and obviously based on the direction that he was moving in, I realized that he was headed for the entrance to the pillbox, which was the base of our attack. It had been captured a couple of days before, and he obviously was headed to over the door, entering the pillbox. He's going to drop grenades on men going in and out of the pillbox. Anyway, I continued on with the squad behind me, and I came to a right angle turn in the pillbox, in the trench. And again, this is a typical German defensive. They would put a right hand or a 90-degree turn in the trench, and the trench would go for about 12 feet. Then there would be another right-hand turn, and it would continue on in the direction that it had originally aimed in. And I peeked around. I was able, I don't know how I did it, but I was able to get a look around the corner, and there was a German soldier 12 feet away at the other right angle turn. I fired at him. He, with my BAR, a Browning automatic rifle, he pulled back, and I threw a grenade behind him, which blew him out into my line of sight again. I fired another burst and moved on over him towards the one side of the pillbox. When we got the whole squad up to the pillbox, we began, they had it turned down. They had a machine gun, a heavy caliber machine gun, an M42 in front of the pillbox, and I had never heard of, seen this. They had a machine gun man firing a machine gun, and he was encased in an iron shell that completely protected him from rifle and machine gun fire. And they had a range so that he could fire continually short bursts, and obviously he had a loader so that there was always belts of machine gun bullets fed in the gun so that he could keep firing off and on all the time.
The loader was another individual?
Yeah, I mean, yes, another German soldier. And they had some soldiers out in front of the pillbox, you know, 2 or 3. And they started throwing grenades at us, and we were throwing grenades at them. We were probably separated by about 25 or 30 feet. This went on for a while. And finally, a grenade landed next to me on the edge of the trench. Fortunately, it stayed on the edge of the trench, and it was down near my feet. So when it went off, I didn't get the full effect of the blast, but the biggest, well, I don't know, but a piece of the fragment of the grenade went through my helmet and into the back of my head, or I should say the back of my scalp, and I got some other fragments in my arm, my back, but the one that hit my head, fortunately didn't go through my skull, but it chewed up everything outside my skull, and so I was out of action, and from there I went into a field hospital, and then after they dressed the wound, they put me on a train to Paris, where they had several military hospitals, and I was there for a couple, 2 or 3 weeks, and then went down to a field hospital in Le Mans, France, and stayed there until I recovered. While I was there about 6 weeks, and I was on my way back to my unit when I came down with hepatitis and went to another hospital in Paris, and by the time I had recovered from that, it was the last week of the war, in the first week of May of 1945. So when I got back to my unit, the war was over. So that was my experience in World War II. I later got a commission in the ROTC at Princeton, and I was recalled during the Korean War, because when you got commissioned in by the ROTC, you had an obligation to serve again for a period of 2 years, maybe. I've forgotten what it was. I didn't go to Korea. I was sent to occupation in Germany, and all in all, I spent about 4 years in the Army on active duty, and that was more or less the end of my military career. Carl, I think you've got some questions.
If I may take you back a little bit to the beginning, and then maybe the beginning of the Ardennes as well. What was it like Why did you enlist in the war? Was it
I
something
didn't enlist. I was drafted. I mentioned I got my, what do they call it, my draft notice in December of a month after my 18th birthday. And a month after that, I had to report for active duty.
Didn't you spend a brief period in the paratroopers as well?
I did.
You want to tell us that story?
Well, it doesn't. I wasn't going to tell it, but I will tell it. After basic training, I joined the paratroopers, and I had broken my leg as a kid, and I concealed that injury from the examining doctors. And so I got in, and at that point, I knew my family would object to my joining the paratroopers, so I hadn't told the family. At that point, I was in, I figured I was safe. I wrote my mother that what I had done, and she immediately wrote the commanding officer of the training unit, and they immediately sent me down to the base hospital, x-rayed my leg, and day after that I was on my way out of the paratroopers. Well, it was a little longer than that. I think I was there 2 or 3 weeks. But I never got to the jumping phase. But I was, of course, angry or upset at my mother, but looking back on it, I think she might have saved my life. I think I had a good chance of ending up at Bastogne, and they lost quite a few men down there. So you never know how things are going to turn out.
So you, in the early fall of 1944, you boarded a Pullman coach, and then you boarded a troop ship to England. What was it like being on the Pullman coach? What was it like on the troop ship? You had lots of people on the troop ship. Was it boring? Was it exciting? Were you afraid? Was there anticipation, or was it just too slow moving? Describe what that was like.
Well, the train ride, if you can imagine, it took about a week to cross the country because of many delays. And I was a new man in the unit. I'd only been there a month. And there's a disadvantage in that you don't know the foibles or the problems of the various men. And I ended up in an upper berth with a man I'd never seen before. And it turned out that this In the Army, there seemed to be one in every unit. He was a guy that refused to take showers. So after an hour, so in the upper bunk with this guy, it began to smell. I'll be quite frank, that isn't very pleasant. I spent the rest of the trip up at the end of the car with the Pullman porters who were very entertaining and they were great guys. So I managed to escape the ordeal to which I was stuck by the lack of knowing my fellow teammates, so to speak.
If this was a film, I suppose the soundtrack would have the tension increasingly building. Was it tense on the troop ship? Was the anticipation? What was it like on the troop ship? Tell us about some of the guys, if you remember. Tell us how you passed the time. What you thought about, what you were afraid of.
We went on deck, I think every day. We were able to get on deck. It was an uneventful trip. I naturally worry about whether a German sub was going to interdict the ship and try to sink it.
Were you in a convoy?
But by that time, I think that was in 1944, and I think we had, in fact, I'm sure we had won the war against the Germans. And although they would get ships occasionally going to Merman with supplies, that was an area that was probably difficult for the Allies to get to. And so we didn't think the sub danger was great. And I'm sure the trip was a bit boring, but I don't, it's certainly, nothing stands out, frankly.
So you described the hiking in Dorset, the training. Wasn't the training more arduous than hiking? You were carrying heavy packs and all your equipment. How did they train you? How did they prepare you for the battle?
We really didn't have much training. It was mostly hiking. And I don't recall that we had carried heavy packs. It was really to keep us in shape, and we were only in England a month. they didn't have time really to do much training other than hiking. And so at the end of a month, we were again on a ship going over to France.
You described being trucked up to the front. You also described to me one time marching and falling asleep marching, and an incident happened. Can you describe that?
Well, yeah, that was when we were transferring from our initial positions to the positions where we were able to attack the Siegfried line, and walking up to that and hiking up to that making that transfer, I guess maybe we were marching at night, and there was a column of tanks and jeeps in the middle of the road, and a line of troops on each side of the road. And I literally fell asleep while walking, and I wandered out into the road, and a jeep knocked me down. But they had little lights, that couldn't be seen by the Germans, but they were just enough to illuminate the road a little bit. The driver of the Jeep saw me as he hit me, and he stopped immediately. And as a result, he didn't run over me, he just bumper knocked me down. And so I wasn't injured at all.
Was this on your march to the Siegfried line, so sometime in late January of 1945?
Yes.
You described the cold, 7 degrees below zero, or 7 degrees?
Above zero.
Above zero. You described the cold, you described not having adequate winter equipment. What was that like? How did you stay warm? You were in foxholes. Where was your food? Did you drink a lot of coffee? Describe what that was like to stay warm. People frequently had trench foot in World War II. How did you avoid that? How did other soldiers avoid that?
Well, the obvious way to avoid it was to have dry socks and change them whenever you had a chance. And I always kept a couple of extra pairs of socks under my shirt and undershirt around my waist to keep them dry, or to dry them out if they were wet. And I changed them as much as possible. And I also wiggled my toes all the time, so they wouldn't, so I wouldn't get trench foot, and I never did get trench foot, but a lot of men in our outfit did. I think at one time they had 40 or 50,000 men in hospitals suffering from trench foot. And if it was bad enough, you could lose toes or lose your feet.
So how did the other men in your unit take this experience? How did different people react? Did everybody react the way you did to the experience? Was it harder for some individuals?
Well, the majority reacted, reacted as was required. They kept going, and those who were smart did exactly as I did. They kept their feet as dry as possible. They kept moving different parts of their body so they wouldn't get frostbite and so on. And the majority of them, as far as weather went, survived the weather. You can always survive much more than you ever thought possible. And you can perform as needed to a degree more than you might have thought possible. On the other hand, I remember an instance where we were in an attack on again, this is the end of, well, it was early in February, just before I was wounded. We were attacking a German position. It wasn't a pillbox. It was just a position. And we got a replacement, an individual soldier arrived as a replacement, and he was assigned to me to kind of take care of the day he arrived. Well, it happened to be during a snowstorm, and also when the ground was frozen and we didn't have much time to dig foxholes anyway at that particular moment. And this guy asked me what he should do. I said, well, you just roll yourself in your shoulder half and scoop out a body-sized trough in the snow and try to sleep. Well, you probably didn't sleep. He certainly didn't sleep, I guess. But when we got up in the morning, we were rolling up our equipment and so on. And I heard a shot of a gun right near me, right next to me, really. And I turned around, and this guy, his first day on the line, shot himself through the foot. So they carted him away. But not many guys did that. I can remember one or two other instances, but not many guys did that. They were able to tolerate the cold and so on. It's, as I said, you're always surprised what you can tolerate compared to what you thought you might be able to tolerate.
Were you under fire from German mortars or artillery shells much of the time?
In attacks, we were under heavy mortar fire and machine gun fire. But unless you were in the unit that was actually doing the attacking, the mortars, they didn't saturate with, or at least in my experience, they didn't saturate the whole area with mortars. It was, they usually had a mortar line that where their range was, and they tested the range and could place the mortar shells right on whatever line they wanted, and they would fire them when the line of attacking Americans were on that line. And it could be absolutely devastating. On one of our attacks, a whole squad one squad, which was 10 to 12 men, all but one man was killed in that one attack by mortar fire. So that indicates what, how effective mortar fire could be if they were properly, if the range and so on had been properly tested or estimated.
So it's cold, you're tired, you're losing squad members or division group members. How did you deal with your grief? How did you deal with your emotions? I mean, you described a minute ago some people could not handle that, but how did you react to it? Did you push it aside? Did you take a moment to think about individuals? I'm sure you knew individuals well who were lost.
Well, that's, you put your finger on the most important point. It depended on how well you knew individuals. I had been with the outfit a relatively short period, and I only had 2 or 3 close friends, or I don't know, maybe close is not the right word. I had only 4 or 5 people that I knew fairly well. So if you didn't know somebody well, it didn't affect you, but as it didn't affect you in an extreme way. But if somebody you know well got killed or wounded, well, sure, it has it affects your feelings, your morale, as you might expect.
Where were some of the guys in your unit from? You remember?
They were mostly from Pennsylvania and West Virginia, plus a group of college boys who had been in a college program the Army operated called ASTP, Armed Services Training Program, and they sent these guys to college, and when they were having heavy losses and needed a lot of replacements, they took all those guys out of college and sent them overseas. So about, I don't know, maybe a quarter of our division were ASTP boys, and the other 3/4 were coal miners from Pennsylvania and West Virginia, and just a cross section of people. but mainly from that part of the country.
So you were all green recruits, draftees. There was not many people in your unit that were combat seasoned, maybe the commanders.
Well, some of the commanders, we had our battalion commander had fought at Guadalcanal, so he was certainly seasoned. And I'm sure some of the officers and from major up, colonels, generals, some of them had fought in the First World War.
So from a perspective of today, 2022, it's probably hard for a teenager or even myself to imagine going into battle. It's hard to imagine attacking a pillbox. Why did you do it? Can you explain to someone who's a teen why you did it? What drove you, or how did the command work?
Well, I think anybody who thinks about it at all knows that the Army is a command system, and the general tells the regimental commander to take a position, and he tells the battalion commander to take the position, and the battalion commander tells the company commander what he has to do, and the battalion commander tells the company commander, and the company commander tells the platoon leader, and so it comes down to the individual platoons and squads, and you pretty much do what you're commanded to do. There are cases where the order is perhaps so suicidal that some captains and lieutenants find a way not to carry the order out, or it gets done at heavy loss, or orders orders get passed down to the lower ranks, and as I say, men do what they're ordered to do, with the exception And sometimes the orders don't get carried out, but usually they are carried out.
Did you have a sense of the bigger picture while you were in the Ardennes, in the Battle of the Bulge? Was there a Stars and Stripes newspaper? Were the commanders communicating to you a bigger picture?
Well, you got the bigger picture from the Stars and Stripes, which was delivered weekly when possible. But and what was happening as far as you could see, which was maybe 100 yards, you know about that. But the area of your division, which might be several miles, you really didn't know anything about. In other words, the local area. You really were in the dark about that unless an action occurred and was over, and they brought you up to date about your local area, but they didn't keep you well informed. So you knew more about what was happening, say, in Bastogne, which was 50 miles away. Then you knew what was happening, maybe, well, certainly 5 miles, maybe 10 miles, you wouldn't have a clue. But what was happening 50 miles away, you might read about it in the Stars and Stripes.
Do you feel lucky to have been where you were in the position in the Ardennes?
Well, as things worked out, we had far fewer casualties than they had in the Bastogne area. So from that point of view, we were, I would say, we're very fortunate.
How do you feel about your overall experience, your service?
Well, I don't think about it a lot. I just view it as we were engaged in a big war. Everybody was involved to one degree or another, and to various degrees, people wanted to do their duty. Some guys wanted to be in combat because they thought it was their duty. other people were happy to serve time in the Army without ever being near combat zones. They were happy. Most of them were probably happy with their good fortune. There were all kinds of feelings. There were a lot of people who avoided the draft, who would not report for duty and did everything they could to hide from the Army if they had been drafted. But during the Second War, there was tremendous feeling of patriotism, and it was, I use the word universally felt, but not maybe that's the wrong. Well, I think it's, there's certainly a percentage that didn't feel that, but the vast majority of the country felt they wanted to serve. At least that was the view I had of what I saw of people and what I saw mostly young men, 18 to 30, and ones who were 30 and had a wife and 2 children didn't feel the same way as an 18-year-old with no dependents. And they drafted, I don't know what age, but certainly into the 30s, they were being drafted.
Did you ever hear from home while you were stationed on the front? Did you hear from your brother? Did you hear from your cousins? Any news from anybody?
Of course. I've got a whole suitcase full of letters from home. You can't believe it.
Have you saved some of them?
Yeah, I saved all of them. Or maybe my family saved. I guess most of them are letters I wrote home. They saved them. I don't think I saved many letters.
So it's has this been hard to talk about? You often hear that it's hard. It's always hard that World War II veterans don't want to talk about it.
Well, Carl, I think for whatever reason, veterans, young veterans, don't like to talk about it. But when you get to be my age, it's, for me anyway, it's very easy to talk about. And I want to mention one other thing that I forgot to mention. In the period just after the war started, this happened 3 days before Christmas in '44. We came under the heaviest shelling that I've ever experienced. And we're on a ridge. It's the Elsenborn ridge. And we were in full view of enemy spotters. And so they had as well as zeroed in. And I, for years, wondered why we got that very heavy shelling that to me was terrifying. And the foxhole, maybe 10, the next foxhole, 10 or 12 feet away, got a direct hit, and both those guys were killed. And we, I think we had one other direct hit in that shelling on our company, and in other shellings we had, I think, at least 2 other direct hits. And that's a particularly devastating thing, because you go over to that foxhole and these are guys that they might not be great friends, but they're guys you know fairly well by that time, and they're just, you know, maybe one of them has a leg blown off, and the other one's mincemeat. It's a rather devastating thing. And that particular shelling, I wondered about why they were shelling, because it wasn't followed up with an attack. Well, I learned from reading, you know, years later, reading history of our unit and so on, that the Germans had organized for I think a battalion-size attack, and it was broken up by our shelling. We poured artillery shells in on those guys. The Germans had formed up to attack our position, and that was the reason for the shelling. But our counter battery fire had completely disrupted that particular attack.
How did you feel towards the Germans? Did you hate the Germans? How did you feel towards them before the war or after the war? Do you ever think much about the individuals you fought against?
Yes, I certainly did. I thought a lot about the guys I killed, and I wondered what they might have been or might have accomplished. And you know, there's probably several years after the war, I wonder, I felt sorry for them. but that was up close and personal. So, I mean, I didn't have any sympathy at the time. I was just very happy they didn't kill me before I killed them. I mean, I'm sure that's the way every soldier feels. But I'm talking about later on, probably much later. You know, I began to think about them. And, especially those that I had to crawl over, and I could see their faces. I could think about them years later, and mainly it was their age. We were in near the end of the war, and one guy, I remember, he looked like he was about 15. I felt sorry for him years later, but I always sort of remembered what he looked like.
Do you think there was a reason why you didn't have post-traumatic stress syndrome from battle?
Well, I think one reason was that I wasn't in the war for years. I had a few months of action and a few months of terrible living conditions. But if they had been 2 years, if I'd survived 2 years, what was your question again?
Whether you thought you had any post-traumatic stress syndrome?
Well, I think it was because, as I started to say, I hadn't had enough combat to get post-traumatic stress. But I don't, you know, who knows?
Do you remember where you were on Victory Europe Day?
Yes. I was in the last hospital I was. No, maybe I wasn't. I think I was in a replacement depot, which is a temporary spot where you go in. They keep moving you up towards the front, and you go, when you get out of a hospital, you go to a replacement depot, which processes you, examines you as to whether you're combat fit and so on, and then directs you. If you've been in a unit, it directs you back to your unit.
So what was it like when you heard that announcement that the war was over?
Well, it was euphoric. I mean, you just, at least speaking for myself, and I'm sure most men felt this way, they're just damn happy that the thing was over. Now the only people who might not feel that way are career officers, West Pointers, who, but even those guys, if they'd been over there for 2 or 3 years, they were very happy it was over too, I'm sure.
Did you have any other sort of final thoughts or anything you wanted to add it? It's been a real honor and a pleasure to listen and be with you here.
Well, thanks, Carl. It's been an interesting experience of going over that period of my life. Has been interesting for me. I was a little surprised that when I came up to certain events, I hesitated because my memory, I was not, there were spots where I didn't remember exactly what was happening at that time, or the sequence. But in talking about it, the events came back in line. I could remember them quite well.
Well, I think you've painted a pretty clear picture of the different events and the experience. So thank you very much for your service, and thank you for recounting the story here at the Film and TV Studio of Norwalk Community College in Norwalk, Connecticut. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Norwalk Community College. It's been interesting to do this.